And that was my last ditch attempt to find something, anything. And I met this woman through a flyer that was there. A couple of French volunteers had made it for her. That, oh, there's this old woman. She's taking care of 40, 60 dogs. She needs help. I went and met her. She was an American woman, old, anemic, broke. And she was collecting this leftover food from restaurants, sifting it with her hands to check there's no soap, no plastic, no glass, feeding it to dogs. And when I met her, I felt really ashamed. Two things happened. One, I was like, she has nothing and she's still giving to the world. I have
Yeah.
everything and I still need something from the world. So shame on you, Robin. That's how I felt. And two, my mom was from a freedom fighter family. And ever since, in my childhood, she would tell us like, oh, you gotta, follow the footsteps of Buddha. You gotta become, follow the path of service. Your dad, talks about money and all. He's silly. And, those things sounded really, really boring back then.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
all those seeds she had planted in me, meeting Lorraine, this American woman, she kind of watered those seeds. And so that was a transition point for me.
Welcome to the new chapter of the Her Resources podcast. I'm your host, Linda Misakadis, and I'm so excited to be stepping into this next season with you solo. This podcast has always been about amplifying women's voices, exploring the challenges we face in HR, leadership, and life, and sharing the tools and inspiration we need to thrive. And now, I'm taking that mission even deeper. You'll hear real conversations with bold and authentic women, as well as reflections from me on everything from pay equity and burnout to confidence, leadership, and the messy, beautiful journey of growth. This is more than just a podcast, it's a community, a space for us to learn, lead, and lift each other up. Welcome to this new beginning. This is the Her Resources Podcast. Let's get started. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Her Resources Podcast. So many of us do everything we're told to make us happy. We work hard, we build careers, we check the boxes, and yet at some point, something still feels off. Well, welcome to the Her Resources Podcast today, where we explore what it really means to live, lead, and grow with intention, especially when the life you've built looks good on paper, but doesn't quite feel the way you expected. Today's conversation is one I think so many of you will connect with. My guest, Robin Singh, author of the book Happiness Happens. Robin achieved what many people are chasing: financial freedom, success, complete control over his time, only to discover that happiness didn't show up the way he thought it would. Instead of continuing to chase happiness, Robin made a profound shift. He stopped asking, "How do I be happy?" and started asking, "What am I living for?" That question ultimately led him to redefine success, purpose, and happiness, and to create Peepal Farm, an animal rescue and community rooted in reducing suffering. This is not a conversation about quick fixes or positive thinking. It's a conversation about burnout, meaning, purpose, and what happens when we stop chasing happiness and start living deliberately. If you've ever thought, should I feel happier than I do? Then this episode is for you. Robin, welcome to the Her Resources Podcast. I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you for having me here, Linda.
Absolutely. Well, I want to start in and talk a little bit about your story because it is a powerful entry point for this conversation. I know even in your book, you talk about like there are 3 reasons why someone might want to read your book, Happiness Happens, which we'll make sure we link in the show notes for everyone out there. But one of the things that you talk about is, really if you're at a place in your life where you're just not happy, or maybe you've had thoughts of there are lots of different reasons why you felt like your book, of all of the other many books that are out there, might resonate with a certain person or situation. So, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and kind of what got you here?
Sure. So I started my career as a hacker, and I was in India back then. And as luck had it, it was a misspelled email that that ended up connecting me with Danny. Danny was this guy in Tucson, Arizona. He is a friend of Kevin Spacey's. And, you know, he was building Kevin's website. He was looking for a programmer. I was looking for work, and my email accidentally went in his inbox. So that's how I ended up then living in US. And I was 23 when I landed in the US, and this was the first time I had a proper job, and it didn't feel good.
Ah,
I was used to working a lot, but on my terms. This was the first time like somebody else told me you have to show up at this hour and leave at this. Danny's a really chill guy, ex punk rocker. I love him to death, but it was still a job, and that's the first time I gave myself a goal and I didn't know back then that it's called financial independence. I just thought I want to have a basic lifestyle, which I had, but I don't want to have to constantly sell 8 hours every day to, to do that. And of course, I thought when I achieved that, I'd be happy. 2010, I got what I wanted, and it was great for a few months. I could do anything. We play Xbox all day. Just travel anywhere I wanted, and then I hated it. I didn't feel happy. If somebody would to ask me how to define happiness, I couldn't. But I had an image of it, and that stage wasn't it. And that is the first time I thought that I should kill myself. I mean, before that I've had a suicide attempt, but this is the first time when I was an adult, and I thought I should kill myself. And of course I didn't want to. So that's where a journey started. That's what the book is about. It's called Happiness for Those Who Have Everything Else. Now, everything else does not mean financial independence, but everything you thought is going to make you happy, you have achieved it, and you still feel something's quite not right. So it's a book for people who are at that narrow juncture of transition, where you know what you don't want, but you don't have a clear idea of where to head.
Something that really resonated with me was when you said that you felt like, because I also had attempted suicide about 20 years ago. And similarly, was just at a point in my life where I felt like, what was the purpose? Like, why was I here? And one of the things that you talk about in your book is finding that purpose, like defining what that is. And why do you think that's so important? Because I do think that many people who are suffering to that degree, who feel like the only answer is to just not be here anymore, are generally lacking in purpose in their life. Even if they're suffering from mental health issues or there's challenges that are going on, it generally comes back to purpose. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The evolutionarily speaking, evolution selected people who were always solving, solving challenges. Those people had a higher chance of survival, and those are the people who spread their genes. So that's how we are designed. Just the way, just the way we can't. Our lungs cannot be without oxygen for more than a few minutes, or we can't be without food for more than a few days. Similarly, our brain cannot be without a problem.
Right.
I do think there's a range, though. There are people who are fine dealing with just the mundane challenges of life,
Mm, mhm.
and but there are some people for them that's just not enough. They can't just busy themselves with these goals. So, I
Right.
mean, I think it also depends on that, intellect, maybe? I
Mhm.
mean, but there's a scale.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. There's something else that you said in the book that I thought was really interesting as well. You said, I can't take credit for most of what I've done in life. I believe that mostly things happen to us, and the little things and the little doing that we can do is how we react to the situation presented. What did you mean when you said that?
I think in modern world we don't give enough credit to fortune or misfortune, and that's why
Yeah,
we end up taking a lot of responsibility sometimes, or we end up taking up a lot of credit. Thing is, we what I intend to do, what I can do is still one factor. There's like billions and billions of other factors that are outside my control. So again, and then a lot of decisions which impact our lives, even like which impact my life currently, were taken before I was born. My parents decided in which city they would have me, in which school they would send
right.
me. So there's all of that. And then if I look at my life, meeting Danny, an accidental email
Mhm.
gets me to United States. Just trying to make a few bucks ends up with me starting a tech company that makes me financially independent. I was looking for freedom. I ended up with money. With that money, I was looking for happiness. I couldn't find happiness. I stumbled upon purpose. I wasn't looking for purpose. Like when I came to India, I was like, I want to be happy and I want to ask the right question, which is going to make me happy. And, so I stumbled across purpose. And then there are only a few deliberate decisions that I did make, that when I understood the impact we have on the world, and then that moment I said, okay, I'm gonna live deliberately. I'm gonna live to reduce suffering. But even everything that happened after, meeting all the people that helped me build People Farm, we are a team of 60 people.
Wow.
So, and I live in rural India, and being able to, overcome all the challenges, all of that,
Mhm.
a lot of things have to line up for it. So
That makes a lot of sense. It does. I'm curious when everything on the outside looked right. So, for those of us who are maybe curious, how did unhappiness actually show up for you day to day? Like, when did you really realize you're like, wow, I'm just not happy?
I think because when cope up, just to cope with the day, I had to smoke up. you know,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I
That's
feel
fair.
like, I have to wake up and smoke pot to just to get through the day, when my day doesn't have any problem. I don't have bills piling up. I don't have to
Right.
do a job. I have a nice house. I was married to the love of my life, and yet I needed to escape my life.
Mm.
It's and the a thing that I don't think I mentioned in the book. That's the first time I went to see a doctor in the United States. Like,
Oh,
what
interesting. Okay.
what's wrong with me? And they're like, you're probably low in B12. And then, so get some B12 shots. Here's some antidepressants. And the side effects of those antidepressants were one, depression, suicide, and unusually grand ideas. Like, I already have all of that.
Right. I love that, because that is so true. You always look at that when you hear about or when you read about all of the side effects of medication. Oftentimes, you're like, I think I'd rather have the disease than have the medication and the side effects that come with it because sometimes they sound much worse. But you're right. It does seem like a quick fix to everything is we can give you a pill and the pill will fix that. And generally, it's not getting at the root of what's actually causing the pain, the problem, the challenges that you were facing. I think it's a real disservice in medicine in general is maybe not listening to people and what they're saying. It's just much quicker to put a bandage on whatever the symptoms are and send you on your way. So that's interesting.
Yeah, tangential, but I think we need more healers in the world. You know,
Yes,
of
yes, I
course, for key
agree.
issues, you need doctors and surgeons,
For
but
sure. Yeah.
in general, I think more. healing is what we need, not just
Yeah.
more medicine.
I have exciting news. The Her Resources podcast is opening sponsorships. If your brand supports women in HR and leadership, think talent, well being, learning, pay equity, coaching, productivity, or mission driven tech. This is your moment. Our listeners are decision makers and change makers who show up for real conversations and practical tools every week. We offer flexible options, pre-roll or mid-roll host reads, series sponsorships, and thought leadership integrations that highlight your story without the fluff. Ready to connect with a highly engaged audience and grow with us? Email contact@herresourcespodcast.com and put sponsorship in the subject line. I can't wait to collaborate. I'm wondering, a lot of people look at it, and maybe even people kind of think to themselves too, as they're looking around. And I think this happens in general with people, is that we think, Robin, what could you possibly have been complaining about? You had financial freedom, you had the love of your life, you have this company, you could do anything you wanted. What do you mean you're not happy? And I think people really struggle with that because I think that there is this belief that things, maybe what we perceive as freedom, financial freedom in those situations are the key to happiness. But that wasn't true for you. What do you say to people who scratch their head and go, "What do you mean you can't be happy? You have everything you could possibly want."
I see, I would have been one of those people. So I lucked out
Mhm.
and I got to the point where I could figure out that this is not it. And it would be
Yeah,
hard to explain it to them. There also, there is a certain level of finances you need to be happy.
that's
You
true.
don't need a whole lot, but if you are always worried about where my next meal is coming from, it would be
Mhm.
very, very, very hard to be happy. The way I define happiness, happiness is absence of suffering. So if you don't have your meal, you're physically suffering. If you're worried about your meal, you're emotionally suffering.
Right.
So I think we are born with this unhappiness, this existential void. This
Interesting.
always we need a problem to solve. And
Okay.
we are distracted from this because we are always pursuing something. It's only
Yeah.
when you stand, you come face to face with what you had been distracted away from. I mean, it happens to people when they retire. I
That's
don't know if
true. That is true.
yeah, because in India especially, because where uh, you're very very invested in your kids even stay with you even after they are married. Even then, I have seen people, once the kids are settled, kids are married, now kids have their kids, now these guys don't have any problem to fixate on. That's when they start feeling, oh, I'm unhappy. I think
Mm.
we always have that, we just never come face to face with it.
That's probably a really good observation. We're so busy with so many distractions in our life, and to your point, it's always solving problems. Like, whether we have them or we create them. Because to your point, I think sometimes we do have to create a little chaos in our lives in order and maybe in that regard, we're trying to create the purpose, and the purpose is, oh well, I have to pay the bills, I have to go to work, I have to solve my kids' problems, whatever it is, we find ourselves distracting from that. And then in a moment of silence, or when all of that goes away, whether it's through retirement or death or anything else that happens, when we find ourselves alone in our thoughts, I think is when the reality of that situation sets in. And maybe that's why we're on that constant pursuit to fill our cup full of unnecessary things and problems and situations, because it's easier to do that than perhaps to maybe look inside and say, something's not right here and I'm not happy. What do I need to do to go and figure that out? Right. So,
Yeah, and if you want to see it on a more micro level, more immediate, if we cannot go through like a lazy day, like a day where we're not doing anything, where then you
Mhm.
have to you'll create a social engagement, or you want to hang out with friends and drink, or every free moment you're just going to pick up your phone and have to entertain yourself. Well,
Yeah.
that is a symptom. That in itself is not a problem. That's a symptom of a problem.
Mm. Interesting. Okay. So in Happiness Happens, you challenge the idea that happiness is the purpose of life, which is a pretty bold statement in a world that is constantly telling us otherwise. So can you talk about that shift and what led you to question that belief?
See, when I started seeing happiness for what it is it is just like when suffering's absent, you're happy. It's different from joy in that sense. For joy, you need something to be present, and next day you want a little bit more of it to derive the same kind of joy.
Yeah.
Happiness is more of a learned state where if the suffering's absent, you're content, you feel happy. Now, if you are living your life to have your life without suffering, it's very circular. It doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, if the goal is to just live without suffering, why won't I just kill myself? Why even go through that
Mhm. Yeah.
trouble
Yeah.
to have a suffering free life? And what am I living for? So it didn't make
Mhm.
sense. So that's when I figured that again, I didn't, then I was like, if even happiness is not the point, why should I live? The only reason I chose to live was that by living, I can derive a value. So instead of just focusing on oh, my life should be free of suffering, it's like I can reduce the suffering of those who cannot
Mm.
help themselves, who don't even have the luxury that I have. I can always
Mm.
choose to kill myself, and a lot of beings cannot. So that's why
Right.
I think that's our purpose. We are the only organisms who can manipulate our environment so intelligently. We have neocortex, we have opposable thumbs, we can reduce suffering. So, with that great power comes great responsibility to live for a
That is
purpose.
very true. Yes, no, I totally agree. Why do you think that we're so well trained on how to succeed, but so poorly equipped when it comes to knowing how to actually live? Because I think that, you see this, people are very driven and motivated to find success in life, but I don't think that they necessarily like, what are you defining as success? Is success just achieving this or that? Is there something more to it? Why do you think it is that we're so trained on how to succeed, but not how to live?
See, I haven't really studied this, so if I have to guess, I think it's a vicious cycle of the way our education systems set up, and then that creates people that are our peers, and it's so we are in that loop. We are never told about life, we are never taught about life, because that doesn't really benefit capitalism as such. So
True.
we are educated to be workers and then consumers, and on it goes. And that's the people we produce that go and then plug into the system and make the system bigger. And then that
Yeah,
system produces those kind of people. So it's like a very self-serving system, which still keeps on bigger. And it's just like it's gonna keep going till the planet explodes.
that is true. And you do talk about that in your book as well about that we are consuming more than the planet is actually able to provide. That there is a component of that for sure, which is part of why you changed how you were living your life. And you do introduce the idea of a suffering footprint. And I found that concept really thought provoking because one of the things that was funny to me is what I read in the book was I am a true animal lover. Like we rescue animals, and I love animals, and I connect with animals. When I read in your book, you said, I didn't start rescuing animals because I love animals. It's because you don't like suffering. And I thought that was really interesting. So talk about what you mean by the idea of a suffering footprint.
So, a lot of people understand that consuming meat causes suffering because you can see very directly an animal has to be, killed brutally for
Yes.
your meat. So that suffering is very visible. That suffering is a few steps removed for, say, eggs. You don't see
Hmm.
because you don't see the chicken that's laying the eggs. It's a
That's
few
true.
more steps removed for dairy. But I think it doesn't stop there. Everything that we consume has to be produced. It's going to be mined or it's going to be farmed. And both of those processes are violent processes. So, so every act of consumption will require production, which is going to cause suffering to someone somewhere. That's what I call a suffering footprint, especially in our industrial production system. For example, if we take the example of a pencil, for a pencil,
Hmm.
you need wood. For that wood, there has to be plantation somewhere, and then that has a graphite lead in it. So for that graphite, something has to be mined. Then the pencil has a layer of yellow paint on the outside. For that
Hmm.
yellow paint, we need mining. We need more chemical. We need a factory to process it. There's a metal bit on the top of the pencil to hold the eraser. Again, for the eraser, you need rubber plantation, and then factories which bring everything together. For factories, you need truck, you need roads, you need, again, more
Hmm.
mining, petrochemicals, and that's just for one pencil. Now, I'm not saying
Yeah.
stop using the pencil because it has a suffering footprint. I'm saying just be very cognizant of that suffering footprint and use the pencil wisely.
I like that. No, that is good because I think about how many times, and I think a lot of it is just our consumer based environment that we live in. And you talk about how you started to reduce your own footprint and looking at it. So, buying clothes from the thrift store instead of buying new clothes, repurposing the things that you have and that you're able to reuse, buying used books instead of buying new books, maybe you go to the library instead of buying them. So there are lots of different ways that we can reduce our footprint without necessarily having to make a drastic change in our life. Would you agree with that? Because I'm sure a lot of people might struggle with the idea of how do I reduce my suffering footprint without making myself suffer.
Yeah, I think that Pareto principle of 20-80, 80-20 applies. If you look at your lifestyle, there's probably 20% things that cause the 80% suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So you can work on that. Just because you can't be perfect doesn't mean you can't start. So that also
Right.
suits people that they either wanna go all in or not. I'm saying do
Yeah.
as much as you can. Like even a- and you divide your time. So I divide my time, and I would spend some time in making sure that uh, I'm not causing, like I'm able to reduce as much suffering as I can. For example, I grow a lot of my food. I don't grow all of it. Now
Sure.
we have running water. I can go to the stream and carry water in a bucket, but I don't do that because time's also a resource. Then I would spend my time in doing good, because reducing your
Mm-hmm.
suffering footprint is just not doing bad.
Mm-hmm. I like
But
that.
that's not enough.
Yeah.
What are you living for? So I spend my time in doing good, and then some of the time spent in hoping, not hoping to inspire, but trying to inspire others so they can also follow the same lifestyle or
Yeah,
something.
I like that. Yeah, that's a great way to view it, I think. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach to things, which I think is really important. So many of our listeners, especially women, are burned out, not because they don't care, but because they care deeply and they're constantly giving. How do you see burnout fitting into this kind of broader conversation about purpose and meaning?
See, especially for people who are empathetic, who
Hmm.
feel the suffering of others, they carry a big cross and they
Yeah.
burn out. I think there are a lot of reasons for that. From what I have observed, one is a lack of agency. We feel very powerless because we look at all these horrible wars and horrible things going on that we can't do anything about. And it requires a bit of training to shift your focus from what you cannot do anything about to anything you can do something about. I'd say start.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this doesn't apply to Western context, but you can translate this. In India, like, I tell people, anything, just put a bowl of water for birds. In the cities, they can't even find water. So start
Mm.
somewhere. One, it helps somebody, and two, it gives you agency that there is something I can do about. Then you need to, it comes down to serenity prayer. You need to be able to differentiate between what is something you can control and what is something you don't have any
Mhm.
control on, and then learn to shift your focus. We are, how we talked about that we are never taught in schools about life, about happiness. One
Mhm.
thing we are never told about is how to focus. They keep telling us, no, focus on your studies, focus on this, focus on that. Yeah, but they never teach us how.
That is true.
So, but like anything else, you learn, you read about the technique and you practice it. And eventually, when you are focused on what you can do something about, and you tune everything else out, so you tend to not burn out as easily. But there is one more thing
Yeah.
that is not visible. People look at me and people think, wow, you've been doing this for more than 10 years. How do you never burn out? What they don't see is a lot of my energy goes in keeping myself sane.
That is probably a good thing to practice.
Yeah. You have to remind
Absolutely.
yourself that, okay, this is all I can do. It's not a cop out,
Yeah.
but it's acceptance.
That's a really good point, I think. It is really hard in that situation, and I think you're right. It is all everything is about balance, right? So, if you're draining yourself too much, then you have to recognize that and be able to say, "What do I need to adjust?" And I think that's something that we're not always very good at, and I think women particularly aren't always good at this, but I think it's people in general really struggle with the idea of that it's okay to stop. You were talking about this earlier even, and I know this is something even I struggle with, is the guilt of thinking, "I'm not gonna do anything today. I'm just gonna sit on the couch and read a book," or, "I'm going to sit outside and do absolutely nothing," when I could or should perhaps be doing, my household chores or taking care of this other thing I need to do or, whatever it is but in that moment, my body and my mind is telling me I need to stop, but we don't listen to what our bodies and our minds are telling us so often, which is, I think, a big cause of burnout as well, so
Yeah, and I think again, it goes to having a purpose does solve that, because when I rest, and I know a lot of people might not agree with this, but when I rest, I know that resting will help me keep working towards my purpose longer. I mean,
yes.
I started eating healthier, I stopped smoking, I started going to the gym because I want a longer, healthier life so I can keep working towards my purpose better and, longer.
Right, it all ties together.
Are you ready to take your podcast to the next level? Let LJM Productions help you sound your best. We specialize in podcast editing, production, audio restoration, and mixing, ensuring every episode is polished, professional, and ready to wow your audience. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned podcaster, we'll handle the technical details so you can focus on sharing your voice. Partner with LJM Productions today and hear the difference.
At a certain point, you chose to define your life around reducing suffering rather than really pursuing pleasure or comfort. What led you to that decision? Because I think you met someone when you went to India and you saw something that sparked that in you. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so when I came to India, I spent 18 months trying various things that I thought are gonna make me happy. And my
Mm-hmm.
last leg of that 18-month exploration was becoming a hippie. There's this mountain village called Dharamkot, and I was consuming very little, walking barefoot and all. And that's when I realized that, yeah, but even if I am not consuming excessively, just life has a suffering footprint. And that's
Mm.
okay, I should kill myself. And I didn't really want to. And I went to South India to just, go to this place. It's called Oroville. It's an international township. And that was my last ditch attempt to find something, anything. And I met this woman through a flyer that was there. A couple of French volunteers had made it for her. That, oh, there's this old woman. She's taking care of 40, 60 dogs. She needs help. I went and met her. She was an American woman, old, anemic, broke, and she was collecting this leftover food from restaurants, sifting it with her hands to check there's no soap, no plastic, no glass, feeding it to dogs. And when I met her, I felt really ashamed. Two things happened. One, I was like, she has nothing and she's still giving to the world. I have
Yeah.
everything and I still need something from the world. So shame on you, Robin. That's how I felt. And two, my mom was from a freedom fighter family. And ever since, in my childhood, she would tell us like, oh, you got to, follow the footsteps of Buddha. You got to become, follow the path of service. Your dad, talks about money and all. He's silly. And, those things sounded really, really boring back then.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
all those seeds she had planted in me, meeting Lorraine, this American woman, she kind of watered those seeds. And so that was a transition point for me. So that's when I said, okay, not anymore for pleasure, for comfort, for conveniences, but for purpose. I got to live causing minimum suffering, and I got to live to reduce maximum suffering.
The People Farm is such a tangible expression of your values. What did building it teach you about yourself that you didn't expect?
Oh, the People Farm. It, it told me how horrible of a person I was, how emotionally immature I was. I knew I was an angry person, but I saw how damaging anger can be for you and for others around you. Um, I lost one of the co-founders because of my anger. So
Mm.
there's that. And it told me that, yeah, existential suffering can be solved by having a purpose, but your emotional suffering, to get over that, you just have to train yourself a lot, and it cannot happen if you're just sitting and meditating in a room. You have to be able to be in real world and learn emotional regulation. You have to let go of a lot. You have to let go of desires. You have to let go of expectations. You have to really learn to differentiate between what you can control and cannot, to be an emotionally mature, happy person.
Hey everyone, we're the Her Resources podcast, where women share real stories, real lessons, and the resources that help them succeed. We're always looking for inspiring women, business leaders, creatives, educators, and changemakers who want to share their journey and empower others. If that sounds like you, we'd love to hear your story. Reach out to us at contact@herresourcespodcast.com and let's start the conversation. I am curious, why animals? I think I know the answer to the question, but I'd love to hear it from you.
See, again, it happened. When I was a kid, my mom used to send me for rescuing a puppy. Meeting Lorraine, she was helping dogs, and then it's almost the easiest way where you start. When in India, there's a dog, I can go pick up the dog, I can rescue the dog, care for the dog. I don't need any permissions for that. Nobody's going to make it complicated
Okay.
for me. Try helping people, it gets really complicated really fast. So,
Very
but
true.
animals is where I've started. I want to do more, especially in India. There are no halfway homes. Like
Oh.
kids when they turn 18, or
Mhm.
you know, orphans. I don't know if it's a politically correct term or not, but
Mhm. Yep.
orphanages kick kids out as soon as they turn 18
Mm.
into the real world.
Yeah.
There is no landing where they can get life skills. So I want to do something about that. So God willing.
Yeah. I like that. I think that that's good. And I think that's a really good point in creating a foundation. People do make it much more challenging. I know even here in the States, you would think that rather than just throwing out all of this food that goes unused, that they could just donate it to the homeless shelters and to the people on the street. And yet that doesn't happen because of situations where they have done that, and then maybe it caused harm for someone for whatever reason, and then that turns into a whole vicious cycle of, blame and accountability and all of that sort of stuff, and I think it does make it really challenging. It is one of the things I think that draws me more to animals than to people is because, there's less complication in the relationship between you and animals. They appreciate the help and then they move on. It's not. It's a very different situation with people. So I do find that interesting. But I love what you also said because children and young people, they also can't do for themselves, and so I think that's wonderful that that's what you're thinking could be a possibility for what's to come next. So
And it would be easier after animals because when we treat a cow, when we treat a dog, I don't expect a thank you. you know.
exactly. Yeah,
So
that's right.
it has already trained me to work with people. So you help people
Yeah.
expect anything. So
No, that is so true. I agree. How did choosing purpose change your actual relationship with comfort, freedom, and even success? Because as you mentioned, you choose to live in a rural village. You have freedom, but not entirely because you have to take care of those animals now that you've committed to. And even how are you defining success? So, like, how did all of that change for you?
see, success. Uh, I never had a hugely material definition of success. So that didn't change a whole lot. I am able to define it in a more crisper way because now my goal is, I know I'll never achieve my goal. It's to
Okay.
reduce
Yeah.
suffering. So now I know success is just having a purpose and being able to work towards it every day. As long as I'm doing it, I am
I
successful.
like that. Yeah.
As far as being used to comfort, it gave me a reason to toughen up.
Okay.
Uh, so, sorry, you did ask about a third thing. I skipped that. You asked about success. You
Yeah,
asked relationship with comfort, and there was a
I did, and then the other thing that I was, is freedom, because that was something that was important to you, was having the freedom to do as you pleased.
so that was my biggest sacrifice for
Okay.
Peepal Farm. So in my book too, I give this analogy like freedom is like having this matchstick. And once you
Mhm.
decide to use it, you can have a fire anywhere, but you don't have the match anymore.
That's
But I'd
true.
rather have that fire that gives light and warmth to others and give somebody else a chance to light their fire from it than just, holding on to my matchstick and dying with it. I died free.
Yeah. I like that. If I were to bring it back to our listeners for a moment, for someone who's feeling off, maybe they're numb or restless or just kinda quietly dissatisfied, but they can't quite name why, where would you suggest they start?
I'd say write it all down. Start
That's a good one.
writing. I find it very cathartic, therapeutic, and you can easily tell you're going in if you're going in circles, and it's very easily accessible. Then if you can, I would say change where you are. Changing where you are changes the questions you ask. Explore, not to escape, but with an intent to find something that resonates with you. Ultimately,
Yeah.
you have to find a purpose, but like anything else, you can only do so much to do that, and rest is, up to whatever you want to call it, world, fortune, divine. But you
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
take that first. You got to do your bit.
Mhm. Yes, I totally agree. What is one question you think that everyone should be asking themselves regularly?
Oh, what am I living for?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good one. That's definitely something I've taken away from the book, from our conversation, and getting to know you a little bit better. What do you think is like one small but meaningful shift that people can make without blowing up their lives that can help them maybe feel a little bit more aligned or at least moving in a direction of alignment?
See, and I'll only speak for people who do have empathy. I think
Yeah.
there are I you asked for one, I'll say two things, because I'll say one is reduce something that is bad in the sense, not how I define bad, but bad that it doesn't align with your values. So if you are empathetic
Yeah.
to suffering, reduce one thing that is causing suffering to others, and then do something. Find a cause that resonates with you, and not everybody can just uproot their lives and start an organization, but luckily there are already organizations working on a lot of problems. And just try volunteering, if even if one day a week. try
Yeah.
try there, start there. Maybe it will not work out, but that experience will give you some direction.
I like that. It's just it's small and it's simple to do, and you're right. Even if you don't end up doing it forever, I hear so often people who will maybe go down and volunteer at the food kitchen, and they've never done it before, and they go down and maybe they never do it again. But in that day, it profoundly changes them, I think, to see and realize because so much of the suffering that goes on in the world, we're oblivious to it because unless it's personally affecting us, we aren't necessarily tuned into what's happening. And so when you can put yourself in the middle of that and you can experience and see a little bit of what's happening, I think it does help in those situations to have a better perspective.
Yeah, and sometimes it also tells you what you don't want to do. We had a German
That's
volunteer
true.
recently, and she was here for 3 weeks. She came for two, and while going, she was very thankful for the experience, and that she always thought she wanted to live on a farm and help animals. And living
Mm,
here taught her that that's not something she can do. So it helped her
that's
move.
true.
It helped her move on.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, and I think in that situation there. Good for her for trying something and realizing it wasn't something for her rather than remaining there and perhaps being unhappy, and in that unhappiness would then kind of, poison the well a little bit, right? To say that if she's not enjoying and she's not feeling fulfilled in that, that is then going to affect how she's gonna interact with the other people around her, so.
Now imagine if she had started a place like this and then realized that this
Oh
is not
gosh,
what she wants
yes.
to. So this experience helped her move on, that she doesn't need to buy land, she doesn't need to start farm. That's why she was really happy and thankful that, wow, thank you for having this place. It gave me a teaser. So that's why I'm saying go
Yeah,
volunteer at a cause and see if that's even for you, and do you want to take a next step in the same direction or choose a different direction maybe.
I like that. Yeah. No, that's really good. As we wrap up, I'd love to ask you this. How do you today personally define happiness?
Oh, happiness is absence of suffering.
Mm,
As long
I
as I'm
like
not
that.
emotionally suffering, physically suffering, and existentially suffering, I'm happy.
That's good. I like that. And if you could leave our listeners with one truth from your journey, maybe one thing that you hope they carry with them, what would it be?
I think we already addressed this one. So it's like you really gotta ask that, what are you living for?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Because
totally
without having
agree.
solved that question, when we take a lot of other steps, we get in a job, we get married, we move to a certain place, we could totally be in misalignment with what one day we would wake up to, that damn it, this is what I wanted my life to be. So the sooner you find,
Yeah.
the better it is.
I like that. Yeah, it's that whole, not looking back with regret, right? So, yeah. No, that's really good. Robin, thank you so much for this conversation. It's one I know people won't just listen to, but will sit with. I think it's really going to be impactful. And what I appreciate most about your message is that it doesn't demand perfection. It's not about radical change. It's just simply inviting people to pause, to kind of question what we're chasing, and to consider what actually matters to us. Which is sometimes the best approach in all of this. And for so many women, burnout isn't a failure, it's information. And it's often a signal that the life we're living no longer aligns with who we're becoming. And so, if this episode resonated with you like it did with me, I encourage you to spend some time with Robin's book, Happiness Happens. You will really love this book. It's an easy read too, and it draws you in because there's so much personal to it as well. I think Robin is very vulnerable in this book. So don't rush through it. It's one return back to it as your perspective evolves. I think it'll be one that's going to live on the shelves for a long time. And if this conversation spoke to you, please share it with a friend, leave a review, or reach out to me. These are conversations that matter most, and they're better when we have them together. So thank you all for being here, and I'll see you next time on the next episode of the Her Resources podcast. Robin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda.
You've been listening to the Her Resources podcast, where women's voices, leadership, and growth take center stage. As your host, I'm here to remind you that the journey isn't always easy, but it is always worth it. Every step you take to build confidence, create impact, or use your voice is part of a much bigger story. It's the one that inspires others to do the same. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love it if you subscribed, left a review, or shared it with another woman who's ready to step into her power. And as always, thank you for being a part of this community. Together, we're not just changing conversations, we're changing the future.